Good afternoon. I'm Bob Millard. I'm chair of the MIT Corporation. Equally importantly, I'm Jim and Marilyn's neighbor in New York City. And I've been to their house, and this is nicer. So anyway, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the official opening of this exceptional space and to celebrate its dedication as the Simons Building. It's occasions such as this that bring our entire community together, and I'm pleased to have here today the Simons family and many generous donors to the building, members of the MIT Corporation and the Institute's senior leadership, our faculty, staff, and students from the mathematics department, members of the mathematics visiting committee, as well as the MIT project team and numerous contractors. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Charles Sullivan. Where are you? Is he here? There he is. The executive director of the Cambridge Historical Commission, and I thank him for sharing his expertise and providing critical guidance throughout the effort to renovate the building. It's a close working relationship with the Cambridge Historical Commission that MIT enjoys and benefits from. We value that partnership. I also want to recognize another historic preservation partner, Gavin Cleespies, who's Director of Programs at the Massachusetts Historical Society. There he is. Thank you for being with us today. The Simons Buildings, as you know, is part of the main group, the heart of the MIT campus for the last 100 almost exact years. The design of these buildings created a unique environment that has fostered decades of collaboration among the many departments that call the main group home. The renewal of the space was an enormous undertaking. It took inspiration, it took innovation, and it took a collective vision of what the future of the mathematics department could look like. And it's because of the generosity of our alumni and friends, many here today, that this occurred. We're all grateful to those who shared MIT's vision for this building, and I want to extend the Institute's sincere appreciation to Jim and Marilyn Simons for their leadership in this effort. Thank you. And on behalf of the Institute, I would also like to thank those whose exceptional support was vital to this restoration. David and Helen Layton, Tom Layton and Bonnie Berger, David Desjardins and Nancy Blockman, Robert and Lisa Ritano, Ted and Debbie Kelly and the Kelly Family Foundation, Sigurdur and Artie Helgeson, and Art and Becky Sandberg. This project was also supported by 3 donors who wish to remain anonymous. Thank you. The incredible philanthropy of these individuals has transformed the use of this building for the faculty and the students for generations to come. We and they, including the unborn, thank you. Really, another 100 years. This afternoon, we'll hear from President Reif, Professor Bonnie Berger, Professor Tom Rufka, doctoral student Gwyneth McKinley, and School of Science Dean Mike Sipser, who used to chair this department, about the impact of the Simons Building, what it already has done and what it will do for the MIT mathematics community. So now, please welcome Dr. Reif.
Bob, you left your speech. Oh, no, it's not your speech. The way the first words look doesn't look like it belongs to me. Thank you, Bob, for those comments, and good afternoon, everyone. And I'm truly, truly delighted to be here, to be with you, as we dedicate a space that literally raises the roof of the MIT campus, the beautiful Simons Building. Last spring, MIT celebrated, as Bob said, its first century on this side of the Charles. 100 years ago, the Institute moved from its first address in Boston's Back Bay to its grand new Cambridge campus. That was a bold move by a bold man, MIT's sixth president, Richard McLaurin. And it called for buildings that could fulfill the aspirations of MIT's chief benefactor, George Eastman, who used to say, I'm quoting, "The future of technology should be big." McLaurin chose the architect himself, an MIT graduate by the name of William Wells Bosworth. Bosworth understood that for MIT to fulfill its potential, it needed a campus as grand as a temple and as efficient as a factory, a practical palace of discovery and invention. For a century, Bosworth's main group, his brainchild, this main group, has served as a home for people and ideas that have changed the world. People and ideas that would surely have made George Eastman proud. But 100 years is a long time. For MIT to have the kind of impact in its second Cambridge century that it had in its first, we must optimize for the challenges of our time. And anyone who has gone looking for Building 12 recently probably knows that, well, we're serious. Building 12 does not exist anymore. Today marks an important milestone in renewing MIT's foundation. I mean that in a literal sense, of course, since the Simons Building represents such a vital part of the main group. But the truth is that mathematics is the symbolic bedrock that underlies nearly everything we do at MIT. The Department of Mathematics is central to the core work of our mission, advancing knowledge and educating students. And its brilliant research and teaching have also been foundational to our achievements in the sciences and engineering. From Claude Shannon and Norbert Wiener to East Singer and Michael Artin, the luminaries who have walked the halls of Building 2 and taught in its classrooms have been some of MIT's finest. And they have made the entire institute, not just the department, stronger. Now, last May, we launched the MIT Campaign for a Better World to give our faculty and students the tools and resources they need to do their best work. But if we expect them to make a better world, we need to equip them with a better campus. We must provide innovative classrooms and welcoming spaces for collaboration and problem solving. The Simons Building provides all of these advantages and more, with world-class facilities, supporting world-class talent. There is no telling the impact of the Department of Mathematics will have over the next 100 years. In his opening remarks, Chairman Millard thanked the donors whose generosity made our vision for this terrific space a reality. Given the significance of today's event, I too want to take a moment to acknowledge the project's donors, because the process that brought us to this point will serve as a model for the work ahead as we seek to fund the revitalization of the whole main group. These days, I'm on the road frequently traveling and talking with alumni and friends about MIT's priorities and needs. Through all of those meetings with MIT supporters, I have found that it is relatively easier, not easy, easier, to excite donors about making a better world. But it is often challenging to convey the power of an unrestricted gift in fueling the impact we envision. But unrestricted funding is critical to our ability to function and excel. It allows us the flexibility to seize opportunities quickly, address unanticipated challenges, and respond to pressing core needs. In effect, unrestricted funds give us the confidence and means to be fast, nimble, future-oriented, and daring. The MIT you count on us to be. a number of very generous donors were attracted to the renewal of Building 2. In fact, 89% of the project was funded by philanthropy. And more than half of the funding came from donors who gave unrestricted funds. The project is a testament to the role philanthropy plays on our campus and in support of our mission. And it provides us with an essential template as we continue to build the campus of the next 100 years. On behalf of MIT, I want to also express my deep thanks to the many alumni and friends whose support was invaluable for the building's renovation. As Bob mentioned, I'm including David and Ellen Lighton, Tom Lighton and Bonnie Berger, David Desjardins and Nancy Blackman, Robert and Lisa Reitano, Ted and Debbie Kelly and the Kelly Family Foundation, Sigurdur and Ardi Helgeson, and Art and Becky Sandberg, who enjoyed a roof raising of their own last winter. We also thank 3 donors who chose to remain anonymous. And of course, we're deeply grateful to Jim and Marilyn Simons, whose commitment to innovation, research, and education is nothing short of legendary. For more than 20 years, Marilyn has served as president of the Simons Foundation, one of the country's leading private funders of basic scientific research, with initiatives in mathematics and physical sciences, life sciences, autism research, education and outreach, and data analysis. The foundation is driving change in many areas that are close to our hearts and our aspirations. About 5 years ago, with a gift from the Simons Foundation, MIT opened the Simons Center for the Social Brain, which supports critical research in the diagnosis and treatment of autism spectrum disorders. The opening of the Simons building represents another significant milestone in the Simons' remarkable legacy of service and philanthropy. I want to close with a story that Jim Simons likes to tell about a summer job he had as a teenager working in the basement stockroom of a garden supply store. I hope I'm telling it the right way. I was terrible at it, he once said. I couldn't remember where anything went. Not surprisingly, he was demoted to floor sweeper. When the summer ended, the store's owners asked him what his plans were for his future. He told them he wanted to study math at MIT. As Jim tells it, they thought that was the funniest thing they ever heard. The guy who couldn't remember where to put the sheep manure, he is going to be a mathematician at MIT. Well, Jim became a mathematician at MIT, and he became a code breaker during the Cold War, and he reshaped our understanding of theoretical physics, and he contributed to the development of string theory, and he founded a widely successful investment company. I'd like to think that part of what enabled Jim's achievements was the transformative power of an MIT education. And I know it's true that this impressive renovation was made possible by Jim and Marilyn's transformative devotion to MIT. To Jim and Marilyn and all our donors, I say a profound and sincere thank you. MIT is grateful for the trust you have placed on us, and we do not take this lightly. And to the students, faculty, and staff of MIT's exceptional Department of Mathematics, I say simply, welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you to our wonderful president. Good afternoon. I'm Bonnie Berger, the Simons Professor of Mathematics at MIT, and I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to share my excitement about this extraordinary building. We have a lot to celebrate. Together, we created something truly amazing. Today, we appreciate the collaborative process we embarked on 8 years ago as we envisioned a building that could both root us in the past and propel us into the future. This would not have been possible without the talent and determination of Ann Beha and also Mike Zipser. Ann listened, she designed, she drafted, and she listened some more. Ann brilliantly captured our collective vision, not only renewing the old, but adding 14,000 square feet to our new 4th floor. So, before I go any further, please let's give a heartfelt round of applause to our incredible architect and her team, Ann Beha Architects. I know Ann's here, but I don't see her. I absolutely love this building. For me, it feels like home. In fact, it is like coming home for me. 25 years ago, I had my first office here on the 3rd floor. In those early years, I started to work with Danny Kleitman at the interface of math and biology. As Singer was connecting math and physics, Peter Shore was showing us how to factor on a quantum computer. Richard Stanley was founding algebraic combinatorics. Herman Chernoff, who I see over there, was continuing his foundational work in statistics, which many of us have used. And Mike Artin was continuing his National Medal of Science-worthy work in algebra. So in many ways, here in this new, beautiful Simons building, we have been given the gift and the space to return to our past to build our future. This building shows that you don't need to throw out the old to create something new and powerful. In fact, our field of mathematics is truly built, like this building, on what came before us. As you all know, the math department has a long and rich history. Mathematics as a field is the cumulative power of the collective dreams, ideas, and hard work of our predecessors. Norbert Wiener founded cybernetics, Claude Shannon invented information theory, and John Nash launched economic game theory, all right here at MIT Math. Today, we stand on the past, a deep and strong foundation that began a century ago. This renovation, this architecture, this design was driven by a mission that we share to envision a future that can be described ordered and inspired by the world of math. This unique design provides each of us with a quiet, private space where we can just think, which we as mathematicians like to do. We can see the beauty of the changing leaves, the ripples on the Charles, and the sparkling lights of the Prudential Center. This building, with its strong foundation, provides quietude, room to envision what can be. But as we know, math is not just a solo journey. For each of us, this building gives us two important things: the space to be on our own and many beautiful spaces where we can come together. We step outside our offices and enter into beautiful communal areas where the lively exchange of ideas and the excitement of students fills the lounges, meeting rooms, and coffee areas. We now have lots of light and open spaces that are fostering collaboration. My group meetings feel so much more lively with views of the river from one of our new 4th floor meeting rooms. I frequently run into fellow faculty and students in the stunning 2nd floor lounge when I go to get my coffee. These spaces give the department a more communal feeling. And to top it off, literally and figuratively, our ideas, conversation, and laughter soar from the rooftop deck. We have it all, and we could not be more fortunate. Before I close, I know that the design and gestalt of this building inspires order and tidiness. We have carefully moved in, reluctant to unpack our past, our clutter, into our new beautiful offices. I want to reassure some of you, whose names I will not call out today. We know your rooms will soon be piled high with papers, books, and yes, even hunting mounts. And the quintessential mathematician will, as Jim Simons, not be able to find where anything is. That said, this new building will be a home and a place for many to collaborate. This space not only fosters collaborations within the math department, but across the Institute: biology, physics, mechanical engineering, economics, computer science. It is a place to encourage diversity in all its forms. Together in this new Simons building, we will flourish and create the advances that will propel humankind forward for generations to come. Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can do this. Okay, so I'm Tom Rufka. I'm the head of the math department, and I want to welcome you to the new Simons building, our new home. We're extremely, unbelievably happy with it. It's at the same time familiar, but it's refreshed, it's re-energizing, and it's stunning. I want to give the guests here a tiny hint of the incredible people that have worked in the Simons building in the past 100 years. They've changed the world in so many ways that I don't have time to tell you almost any of them, but we have people who've made fundamental advances in the most pure abstract mathematics. They've laid the foundations for applications of mathematics to many subjects like fluids, astronomy, computer science, statistics, information theory, and others have gone on to found transformative companies and even risen to high political office. The people who have spent time in the Simons building have won all manner of prize and have been named to the most prestigious honor societies in their fields, including National Medal of Science, Nobel Prize in Economics, Fields Medal, MacArthur Prize, Abel Prize. People are in the National Academy of Science, National Academy of Engineering. The list goes on and on. And though the contributions are broad, two important attributes unite all of these people. All had a deep love for mathematics, and all made contributions to the education of the many generations of students at all levels that have also spent some of their precious time in the Simons building. To give you some idea of what kind of a task it is to educate the MIT community, you need to understand that it is one of unparalleled mathematical strength. A great example of this is our students' performance in the Putnam exam, the toughest college mathematics competition. For each of the past 14 years, at least 20 of our students have had an honorable mention, roughly in the top 80, and in the past 3 years, it has been over 30. There's no comparable streak of such depth by any school in the about 100-year history of the exam. And it's wonderful to be able to teach these students and to be able to interact with them in this beautiful new space. We live in a world where the importance of mathematics grows daily, and it requires the development of new mathematics at an increasingly sophisticated level. There's no better place than MIT to feel this need viscerally. While we in the mathematics department are at the vanguard of mathematics, the number of people at MIT that use and develop mathematics at a very high level is large and ever growing, and it gives us in the mathematics department inspiration. Our members have collaborations all around the Institute in all the engineering departments, the science departments, and now that biology and big data are crashing together at the Broad Institute, members of the department are digging into problems there as well. I've been a user of Building 2 for close to 40 years and a resident for 20. I was an undergraduate here. class of '83. And I know all the users of Building 2 feel quite deeply that Building 2, the Simons Building, and the main group in general are a very special place. Like you saw, it has just the right mix of functionality and practicality with a dash of grandeur fitting for the important work that is done here. The main group embodies the ethos of MIT, and the new updates refine that vision and make the Simons Building into a fitting home for one of the world's top mathematics departments. I know all of my colleagues in the math department are pleased and proud to have the building renamed in honor of Jim and Marilyn Simons. Jim worked in Building 2 at the beginning of his first career as a leading mathematician, and it is always a special pleasure and honor to have him walk these halls again. Jim and Marilyn, you're both welcome back here anytime. The renovation presented a great challenge to the architects and Beha Associates. How do you modernize an iconic building while staying true to its roots? And as been mentioned several times already, nothing brings out this successful marriage of new and old like the fourth floor. The fourth floor presents a compelling vision of what the main group can be in the future, one that is both forward-looking and yet respects the past. It is a beautiful modern space that includes a terrace, a wonderful Leighton seminar room, a breakout space divided by a thick wall surrounded by chalkboards. It is wonderful to see high-level seminars going on one side and undergrads working on their homework on the other side. A big thanks to our colleagues Tom Leighton and Bonnie Berger, as well as Tom's parents, David and Helen Leighton, for their help in making the fourth floor possible. Oops. The Simons Building also houses other magnificent spaces. The David Desjardins Graduate Pavilion is now the stunning new home for our first-year graduate students. We always have a pitched battle for recruiting the top young mathematicians. Our historical acceptance rate was between 35 and 40%, and the past 2 years it has been around 50%, and I'm sure that the much-graded space was a factor in this change. Thanks to David and Nancy for making this possible. The large and beautiful Alberto Calderon Lecture Hall on the first floor holds 131 students and is served by top-of-line technology, including lecture capture. It is a wonderful space for holding large classes. It is also a pleasure to see our wonderful colloquium finally having a home within the department that matches the wonderful ideas that are being discussed. A big thanks to Bob and Lisa Raitano for their help in making this possible. We also have 3 department-controlled dedicated seminar rooms. These include the Ted Kelly Room, which boasts a beautiful river view and is always busy with the latest mathematics. And a big thanks to Ted and Debbie Kelly and the Kelly Family Foundation for their help in making that space possible. The Sandberg Executive Suite houses our Math Academic Services office and the Math Department headquarters. Both are important hubs of activity that serve the MIT student. One serves the MIT student population, and the other manages the department's daily needs in myriads of ways. A big thanks to Art and Becky Sandberg for their help in making this space possible. The Norbert Wiener Common Room came about by uniting our previous common room and reading room, and it provides a spectacular gathering space for the department, be it our daily tea, our special events, or department-wide meetings. So an anonymous donor helped with that space. When I was an undergraduate here in the early 80s, the undergraduate lounge, while homey, had the air of used couch storage. It was already much improved by the time I returned to MIT as a faculty member, but with the new renovation, it has become a truly beautiful space. And I have 2 offices. I have the offices where I do what I love to do, my work, and then the department head office where I do things that need to be done. But that office is right around the corner from the lounge, so I get to pass by it often, and it is always busy with students hard at work or chatting about math. It's a wonderful space, and that was also made possible by an anonymous donor. So the thoughtful design is already changing the culture of the department. The new windows onto the river and addition of shared workspace give the Simons Building a much more open, inviting, and collaborative feel. On a bright and sunny day, the contrast between the Simons Building and much of the main group is quite striking. Even my most curmudgeonly colleagues cannot help but smile at least a tiny bit these days when they walk around the department. I also want to thank MIT for the vision to make sure that art is part of the equation. The Simons Building is now home to Antony Gormley's Cord, a stunning and graceful 4-story steel piece that decorates our grand staircase. At the opening for the piece last year, it was a pleasure to hear Gormley speak passionately about how pleased he was to have his work displayed at MIT. He saw MIT as a place that embodies the best impulses of humankind, striving for excellence in knowledge, science, culture, and art. The project involved many people. Besides the wonderful donors, I think Mike is going to thank them in some detail. So Susan Hockfield was the president and Raphael when the project started, and then I want to thank them and Raphael in his role as president, and Marty Schmidt for all the wonderful things they've helped to allow us to do. And of course, Mike Sipser, who was my department head, it was the department head before me. Essentially all of the credit for the success goes to him. I was just, he set everything up and I just kept all the balls rolling. This renovation was a great success. It provides this great department with a wonderful home, and it will help us with doing the work we need to do, both to help MIT in its mission, and I'm sure it is helping us recruit the best possible mathematical talent at all levels, from senior hiring to undergraduate students. So I hope when the ceremony is over, you come and take a look. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gwen McKinley, and I'm a PhD student here in the math department. Last fall, I came to MIT as a grad student when the math department was being housed in a temporary space across Ames Street. I had visited campus the previous winter and had seen Building 2 under construction. We were given a tour on the admitted students open house weekend. And even with all the copper pipes and pieces of drywall lying around, I could tell that it was a beautiful building. I remember thinking to myself that there must be very few math departments in the world with such an ideal location. Anyhow, I started my MIT career in a windowless cubicle in building E17, which I thought was perfectly fine, although as the days got shorter towards winter, I would set a time to go outside and see the light before sunset. But then, in the depths of winter, as you might say, the sun rose on the MIT math department. I had seen the architect's drawings for the Building 2 renovation, but when I saw it in person last January, I was blown away. The whole building is gorgeous, and I particularly love the common room. You see the river out of one window, Lowell Court out of another, and the branches of a tree from the third. In the afternoons, the light streams through the branches of the tree, and whatever the season of the year, I always feel like the common room was built with it specially in mind. And as a first-year grad student, I loved working in the first-year office on the 4th floor. We all got to know each other much better since we shared the same space. I think it built a camaraderie in our cohort. We would go out to dinner together more often and work on our problem sets together. And let me just say a word about the new 4th floor. The common area, the seminar room, and the terrace are wonderful. This summer, I helped the department run Math Roots, a summer program for high school students from underrepresented backgrounds. And every day for 2 weeks, these students worked in the 4th floor seminar room. If you haven't seen it, it has wood paneling on the ceiling, blackboards on 3 walls, and you can see a little piece of the Boston skyline out of the windows. It's a pearl of a room. And I felt so proud that we had something like this to offer these students. You could tell they were impressed. And I hope and I think it showed them how much we cared about them, that we offered them our very best, and that we had something so excellent to give. But I think my favorite place on the 4th floor is the terrace. The view of the river through the treetops is just lovely. Sometimes I've seen hawks flying by. In good weather, I like to bring a cup of tea and just stand out there looking out. In the winter, sometimes I went out to play in the snow. As a native Californian, it has never ceased to amaze me. I especially love the view from the terrace at dusk, when the river and the sky are the same color and the city lights are just beginning to show. Some people say that math is like art. We try to create something of beauty. Well, the Simons Building is a fitting place for artists. To everyone who worked so hard on this project over the course of many years, and to everyone who provided the resources that made it possible, the graduate students of the math department, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Sipser, and I'm the Dean of Science here. It's great to be with you all on this spectacularly glorious day as we dedicate the renewed home of the math department, the Simons Building, formerly known as Building 2. This building has always been the home of mathematics at MIT. I was the mathematics department head during the design and most of the construction. I guess that's why they've asked me to speak with you today. I thought what I would do is tell you some of the stories of the design and the construction. I have a lot of stories. Not all of them can be told. I think I could spend a whole day telling you stories, but we only have 2 hours until dinner, so I better keep it short. I thought what I would do is tell you the story about how the fourth floor came about. I've always wondered about those things myself. How do organizations, how do they come to decisions about doing things like that? And so this was a case where I actually got to live the experience. And I don't know if there's anything to be, general principles to be drawn from it, but at least I could tell you the story. So Building 2 was built 100 years ago. And it was always the home of mathematics at MIT. And for the last 40 years or more, the allocation of space for the math department within the building has remained about the same, even though the department has grown over time, slowly but steadily. And year after year, the building became more and more crowded. And by the time I became department head a dozen years ago, it was just really so uncomfortable that we really had a lot of problems getting done the things that we needed to get done. It was just, I could, if when somebody went on sabbatical, they had to give up their office because we would need that space for visitors, just as an example. Visitors were often asked to share space. I was just talking to Mrs. Calderon that her husband was asked to share an office with the visitor when a visitor came by. So, it was a bad situation. So when the discussion of a renovation came about, I thought that was going to be save the day. But in fact, a renovation doesn't necessarily get you new space. It actually typically costs you space because you need space to do to do modernized infrastructure for the building, to bring everything up to code. You end up losing about 5 or 10% of the space. That was going to make a desperate situation even more critical. So what were we going to do? So we hired an architect. This was about 6 years ago, and told them what the parameters were, what they needed to do, and basically the solution they came up with was to move around all of the offices, basically cram as many people as possible into our existing floor plan, And it was, without regard to comfort, without regard to natural light, it was actually a pretty terrible plan. And I was like, dismayed to see it. And I showed it to Mark Kastner, who was the dean at the time, and he thought, oh, this is terrible. Not a good thing. So what are we going to do? Well, this is what we did. We got a different architect. And so we hired at that point Imai Keller and Moore, and they did a fresh look. They measured the needs of the department and looked at what we had available in terms of space, and they came to the conclusion that the only thing that was going to be possible was to add a floor. That was the only way we were going to be able to get enough space. But where's the floor going to come from? Well, the building, as it had been built, had 3 floors with very high ceilings. So in principle, one could take out all of the structure of the existing floors and put in new floors, which are more, with lower ceilings, and squeeze in an extra floor, get an extra floor in that way. But the problem with doing that was it would be really expensive. Removing all the floors and basically rebuilding the entire building from scratch. I don't even know if it would be possible in terms of the structure of the building. That would be extremely difficult, and that was out of the question. So they came up with an alternative plan, which was to take the first floor, which had the highest ceilings, 16-foot ceilings, and divide it in 2. So we would end up with 2 floors with 7.5-foot ceilings. Okay, because you need a little space for the floor structure itself. So the 16 feet would become 16-foot high ceilings on the first floor would become 2 floors with rather low ceilings. That would seem like the only option. I was supportive. I said, let's go for it. So, and then we went into the different phase of the design, which I think is called design development, if I got that right. We hired, the architects who were going to actually carry that thing forward. This was Ann Bea and her colleagues. And we started looking at what that was going to be in terms of, this sort of mezzanine on the first floor. And the problem, we were designing that going forward, and wisely, our facilities group decided, let's do a mock-up to see what that would actually look like, to have 7.5-foot, ceilings, with offices that high. And so they built a small mock-up of the space with the lower ceilings, lower height ceilings. And as soon as that mock-up went up, everybody could see this was going to be terrible. This was not going to be a good solution. I don't know if I had no sense of what 7.5-foot ceilings would be like, but it was not going to be comfortable. And it was going to have to change our whole way of hiring. We would only have to hire short mathematicians. So that was not going to work. And so it was not clear what to do at that point. People came up with various ideas, but nothing seemed to work. It was not a good situation. So we were kind of stuck. But there was a parallel process going on at the same time, which ultimately helped lead to the idea in sort of a circuitous way. We were engaging the whole department in the process of design. We talked to the faculty, the students, the staff. We had a blog set up. There were, dozens of messages coming online. These were being answered. Lots of ideas were being explored. And among those ideas was the idea of a roof deck. That was what people wanted. This has nothing to do with, our office space shortage. They just thought it would be cool to have a roof deck. They'd have parties up there. It'd be great for recruiting. We could have had this event up there, for example. It might have been really nice. So I was sort of, not too sure about carrying that idea forward to the administration, but I did ask our facilities people, is it possible we could have a roof deck? And, I could see their look. Every time I asked that several times, every time I asked that question, I would get that look, like, are you serious? They wouldn't say no. They would always say maybe. but it never got part of the design drawings, and so I could see that maybe really was the maybe really was a no. And I decided to ask Mark Kastner, who was the dean at the time, is it possible that we could get a roof deck? And he said, why don't you ask the architects if it even made sense? So I thought the reasonable idea. It happened that a couple of days later, Tom Hoteling, who was in Ann Behes's firm, was in the hall, and I said, does it make sense that a roof deck? And he said, oh, roof deck would be great. That would be fantastic in the building. Not only would we could do a roof deck, we could put offices up there. And we could put, real usable space up on the roof. And I said, oh, that would be actually good. That would be great. At that point, I reached out by email, in fact, to Dick Amster, who was the head of facilities, head of facilities, and I didn't want to bother Dick, and he's a busy guy, but I thought that this was an important issue, and I said I'd like to talk to him. He came right over the next morning to my office, and he said, what's up, Mike? And Dick, I said, we're thinking in the math department, about the possibility of using the roof space somehow. Maybe a roof deck, maybe for offices. Basically, the facilities team is really not making a decision on that. They're not saying yes and not saying no, but it's really, in effect, going to be a no. And don't you think, the math building 2 is going to be the template for the whole main group renovation? Shouldn't we actually think about this? Shouldn't we make a decision, not just sort of happen by default? And, the great thing about MIT is people listen to reason. It was a reasonable request. He took that request forward to, then Associate Provost Marty Schmidt, talked to Mark Kastner about it. And within a few days, a request went out to the architects. Why don't you see what you could do if you built something up on the 4th floor, both roof deck as one option, and actually if you did a construction. And then the ball was in the architect's court. And, a month later, they came back with a design, and it just blew everybody away. It was this design. What we got, essentially a slightly different, but basically the same idea of this very clean, modern-looking thing that's on the top of the building. And it was, nobody, I don't think, it seems obvious now. Back then, it was not obvious what you would do up there. And it's beautiful. People just loved it. And, we were like high-fiving each other in the department. It was like, wow, this is going to happen. This is great. And then I got called into Mark Kastner's office. He says, Mike, I have bad news for you. You're not going to get the 4th floor. I said, why? He says, because, we don't have the money. We have only a certain amount budgeted from the renovation. That's going to cost an extra $12 million, and we just don't have it. I was so, you have no idea how upset I was. I was really, really bummed because it was so great. So I said, well, suppose I raise the money. He said, well, if you have the money, great, but no money, no 4th floor. So I walked out of there thinking, what am I going to do? Got to raise, a lot of money here. So I thought, oh, who can help me out? I thought of Jim and Marilyn, but, we asked them for so much. They've been so generous. I didn't really feel that it would be appropriate to ask them for yet additional funds, and I was afraid they'd say no. So I called up Tom Layton. I said, Tom, you've been supported the department before. This is our time of need. This is a time when a gift is really going to make a difference. If you're ever thinking about giving money to the department, this is the time. And Tom said, come on over to Akamai and, show me what you got. So I came over with Elizabeth Chadis. We had the plans. And basically, Tom gave us a huge part of what we needed to make this happen. Then I called up several other folks, Art Sandberg, who had already given money toward the renovation. He doubled that amount of money in order to enable the 4th floor. Talked to David Desjardins. He also increased his gift. And basically, we were able to raise about 80% of the cost of the 4th floor. and it went forward. So it was very good news. Now, if I have another few minutes, I was going to tell you a short second story. All right. So this is more of a quirky story, but I kind of find it amusing. So if you ever go up to take a look on the 4th floor, there's something a little bit odd, which you might not notice. You probably wouldn't notice it unless you really look for it, which is that the glass box that's the 4th floor is not symmetrical on the top level. There's a setback, I think in part to make it less sort of for the sight lines to make it less obtrusive in a way. So it's set back, but it's set back on the Killian Court side by about 3 or 4 feet, but on the Memorial Drive side, it's set back by about 8 or 9 feet. So it's set back much further on the Memorial Drive side. Why? Because, that's what I was asking when I was seeing the design. That's lost space. We want every square foot out of this thing. So why set it back? You understand what I'm saying? The building, the 4th floor doesn't go right to the edge of the building. It's pulled back from the edge of the building, and it's pulled back about 8 or 9 feet on the Memorial Drive side. So here is the reason, which is crazy. Any construction that's done within 250 feet of a waterway has to be approved by the state of Massachusetts. And if we had built that construction right up to the 3-foot setback, it would have been within that corridor, so they said. And so they wanted to just stay outside that corridor, and so we're going to lose that 5 feet of space on that side of the building. And so I thought, all right, that seems like sort of, I can kind of understand, and, what are you going to do? But, my nature, I'm a kind of a trusting person. But, I also like to check things to make sure they're really true. So one early morning, it was a February, in fact, I checked my calendar. One early morning in February, I think 2013, I came out here to Memorial Drive, and I brought my tape measure. This is my 100-foot Stanley tape measure here. And I actually measured the distance from the river to the building. And they were right. It was about 242 feet. So what you going to do? So that's, anyway, so that's it is built that way with the setback. Anyway, so I do want to, turn to thanking so many people who helped make this possible. So I have a lot of people I really want to thank, need to thank. Please accept my apologies if I've forgotten you when you should be on this list, and that's just my incompetence. So one person I want to thank for the very beginning is former President Susan Hockfield. I'm not sure she's here, but I'm grateful to her for initially backing this project, and also especially for trusting the department's judgment about which architect to pick. We really liked Ann Beha. That was not, I think, Susan's top choice, but when I explained that, I thought that Ann had the sensibility to communicate well with mathematicians, she said, well, that's important, and that was the way things went. So I loved her design work that we visited. I want to thank also John Reed, Raphael Reif, Marty Schmidt, and Mark Kastner, Israel Ruiz, some of them who had been in former roles than they are now, but all of them were critical in making this thing happen. I also want to thank the project team. There's Aaron Abrams, there's Sonia Richards, Dick Amster, Joe Collins, Marty DeLuga, Gary Tondorf-Dick, Aaron Abramson, Peter Bedrosian for help with the classrooms, and I don't want to forget John Dunbar. Honestly, we loved working with you. It was a great experience. I know sometimes facility gets flack And I'm not sure you get enough thank yous. So a huge thank you from us. You really delivered. I also want to thank, as has already been done, Ann Beha, and her colleagues, Tom Hotaling and Ed Rice. They were fantastic in wanting to deliver a great renovation for us, it was, very client-centered. Sometimes she would have us, groups of us over to her office in downtown Boston, and it would be like lunchtime, and amazingly, most places they would just order out sandwiches. She cooked us lunch. This is true. I also want to thank Randall, Imai Keller-Moore, Randall Imai, and Joe Keller, who came up with some of the original concepts for the design. Bond Brothers, who were involved with the actual construction, Alan Steinberg, Robert Dooley, Mike Canal. And I also want to thank Tom Marufka and Gigliola Stefalani, who are kind of my partners in crime during this whole process. You can't do these things, even at a leadership level, you can't do it yourself. We would bounce ideas. We were cheering each other on through the process, thinking about design questions. It was great working with them. I want to thank all of the members of the math department community, the many faculty, students, and staff who were so engaged and cooperative. I could tell you now, I'm the dean. I can see I get to see all the departments in the School of Science, all 6 of them, and the math department is the best. Again, I want to thank, I'm not going to thank them all individually, but I want to thank the donors who made this all possible. It was absolutely critical. And finally, I just want to thank MIT. I'm so fortunate to be able to dedicate my life to a place that's so important and so meaningful to the world. So thank you all.
So, Mike, this is a math question, Mike. Mike, when you were measuring with your tape measure, Mike, were you doing it diagonally? Could have had those other 8 feet. Congratulations, Mike. Congratulations to the math department. Congratulations to MIT. I just want to thank everybody who spoke so eloquently today. Let me see if I can synthesize it, which is that MIT really matters to the world. If you don't believe that, you're probably in the wrong place. And that math matters greatly to MIT, as Raphael pointed out. And this building matters a lot to math, as everybody said. So those who made this possible, it just seems to me you are pushing on an enormous lever for good. So congratulations to everybody. So I want to invite everybody to continue this celebration with refreshments and entertainment taking place at various points throughout the building. That's what normally happens in the math department. So be sure to explore all 4 floors, including the one that didn't exist when some of you were last in it. The closest access to the elevator is from the door immediately behind the stage. And if you want to take a self-guided tour of the Simons building, there'll be maps inside to guide you to the many high points throughout. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.